Senior journalist Digvijay Singh Deo joins us in the studio to talk more about Suresh Kalmadi, Ajay Chautala. We'll get to that in a bit, Diggy. But first up, ultimately it never came about, the appointment of Suresh Kalmadi and Abhay Chautala as life presidents of the Indian Olympic Association. But it has renewed focus on the utter lack of ethics in the functioning of Indian sports bodies. Take a look.
Much ado about nothing. Reports about Commonwealth Games tainted Suresh Kalmadi and Abhay Chautala being honoured as honorary life presidents of the Indian Olympic Association sent social media into a spin and outraged sportspersons.
Nothing has changed corruption-wise, the way they handle the athletes like slaves. So whatever has happened, Kalmadi and Chautala, all these people are supported by all IOA, all the federations, and they are made life presidents. I'm not surprised.
Within hours, however, Kalmadi's lawyer indicated his client would not be taking up the offer even as the Sports Ministry issued a show-cause notice.
IOA had taken a decision to appoint him as a lifetime president. Suresh Kalmadi has declined to accept the post. He feels at this moment, till his name is not cleared, he would not like to accept any post or responsibility on that has been offered to him by IOA.
Kalmadi served as IOA president from 1996 to 2011 and was jailed for 10 months for his involvement in the 2010 Delhi Commonwealth Games corruption scandal. Chautala is embroiled in a case of disproportionate assets dating to the time he served as the IOA president from December 2012 to February 2014, although he denies it. The dust has settled, but it has revived focus on the functioning of sports bodies in India, especially their lack of accountability and transparency. But Chautala has hit back, saying the sports minister has failed in his duties.
मैंने जो रिएक्शन देखा सरकार की तरफ से, खास करके जो विजय गोयल जी का जो रिएक्शन था इस पे, बड़ी हैरानी की बात थी। वो ये कह रहे थे कि अभय सिंह चौटाला के खिलाफ क्रिमिनल केस है। हरियाणा के जो खिलाड़ी हैं, अगर कहीं 100 खिलाड़ी इस देश के खेलने जाते हैं तो उनमें 60 खिलाड़ी हरियाणा प्रदेश से होते हैं। उस स्पोर्ट्स पॉलिसी में हमने नगद पुरस्कार की शुरुआत करी थी।
We are shocked at the resolution passed by the IOA to make Suresh Kalmadi and Abhay Chautala as life presidents of IOA. This is totally unacceptable to us, as both are facing serious corruption and criminal charges against them.
Even though IOA is not associated with the Indian government, it certainly raises questions about ethics. Internationally, many Russian athletes were banned after doping allegations from the World Anti-Doping Agency. Bureau Report, WION.
So let's talk a little bit more about what's really driven social media crazy in the last 24 hours. Digvijay Singh Deo joins us in the studio to talk more about that right now. Digvijay, like I mentioned, social media is upset, athletes are upset, Vijay Goyal is upset. Put all of this in perspective for us.
The Indian Olympic Association is not upset because it's a cozy club, and I've covered the IOA for around 15 years now. And I honestly wasn't surprised when this resolution went through yesterday. First of all, it wasn't on the agenda. I spoke to some federations who were there at that meeting, and they said at the last moment, it was just somebody stood up and said what to do about this, and everyone said, okay, let's do it. And later I asked them, I said, didn't you realize what you guys were doing? That you asking two people to become life presidents who themselves are debarred from being members of the IOA because of the IOA's constitution. Obviously, the media took this up, and as you said, on social media, it went viral. Mr. Kalmadi himself has decided to withdraw.
Right.
But there's a confusion on the status of Mr. Chautala. I was told by a senior IOA vice president that Mr. Chautala, in fact, after hectic lobbying from senior IOA members this morning, decided to withdraw. But this evening he has done a U-turn and he's decided to brazen it out. That just shows there's no power associated with this role. It's just an honorary post. But everyone just wants to be in the IOA because it's a sort of status symbol in Indian sport.
Sure. So are you saying that this is much ado about nothing, and the fact that these are posts that are probably don't have much significance in the running or functioning of the body, that everyone is up in arms just because these are the names of two individuals who have captured our attention on account of corruption earlier.
While it may be that symbolically there's no value, but the fact remains that for Mr. Chautala especially, not so much Mr. Kalmadi, who's taken a bit of a backseat ever since the Commonwealth Games scam, and he's not generally seen much in the public eye. But it's all common knowledge to all of us who cover Indian sport that Mr. Chautala, in fact, is the de facto ruler of the IOA. That whatever happens in the IOA happens only because of him. The fact remains that he was at the Rio Olympics with the accreditation card of the president of the IOA, who's known to be very close to him. So for Mr. Chautala, who's not allowed to take any official IOA post, what this life president honorary post would do, it would make him eligible to attend every IOA meeting or an executive body meeting, which he does attend even now, but it's not officially.
Okay, so that underlines the cozy club factor for sure. But for the viewers who are not really in tune with what's going on, if you could just elaborate a little bit more about the connection or lack thereof between the Indian Olympic Association and the Sports Ministry.
Well, the Indian Olympic Association draws its power from the International Olympic Committee, the IOC, and it is supposed to be autonomous. Now, the IOA is an umbrella body of national sports federations in India, be it the Hockey Federation, the Shooting Federation, and so on. While those federations have accepted age and tenure guidelines imposed by the Government of India as per the Sports Code, which limits them to 8 years for a role of a president and then a cooling off for 4 more years for a secretary and so on. The IOA has not accepted that. Now, while these sports federations, which are national bodies, they get money from the government to run their affairs.
Sure.
In the case of the IOA, it only sends teams abroad for an Olympic Games or a Beach Games or an Asian Games and so on. So therein lies the problem. The Sports Ministry wants to control the IOA. The IOA, when the members of the IOA are respective sports federations, they follow the government's code. But when it comes to the IOA, they seem to come together and say, we will not follow the government's code. So the Sports Ministry is making the right noises at the moment because there is a lot of public pressure. Because let's face it, Mr. Kalmadi, even though it's been 6 years since the Commonwealth Games, he's not been convicted in a court of law.
Right.
But he was seen as the symbol of the alleged corruption during the Commonwealth Games. And Mr. Chautala, in fact, his election saw India getting banned from the Olympic Committee.
Sure. And this mishmash between, who's governing what and which body comes under. So at the end of the day, is sport and athletes suffering under, this mix of guidelines, really speaking? Do you think that?
Of course, I mean, at the Olympics in Rio, I was there, we only won 2 medals. India won 2 medals. And the kind of money that went into Indian sport for those Olympics, 2 medals was way, way short of where we should have been, especially after we won 6 medals at the Olympics in London. The Olympic Association should basically be a body to look after the interests of the sports persons.
Right.
The problem is there is petty bickering, there is sycophancy, and the sycophancy is the reason why you saw this pushed through last night in that meeting in Chennai without it even being on the agenda.
So the International Olympic Committee, did step in 2014 and annulled Mr. Chautala's appointment. Do you see the IOC stepping in at this point in time as far as the decisions by the IOA go in terms of the live presidents?
Well, Mr. Kalmadi's already given up his post. It now remains to be seen if Mr. Chautala is going to brazen it out or he's going to give it up as well, because the majority of the IOA now has realized that the major controversy has been created at a time when nobody was talking about the IOA. In fact, the Secretary General of the IOA, Rajiv Mehta, in Rio told us that what is the IOA? It's nothing but a post office. So nobody takes the IOA seriously until they do something as absurd as this. I was talking to the president of the International Hockey Federation, Narinder Batra, who till recently was the Hockey India president. And he's come out and said this was an extremely stupid decision. Those are very strong words from a sports administrator saying that when you have allegations of corruption, these are issues which have to be sorted out first in a court of law, that we have to look to lead our athletes into the next Olympic Games and do well, and not bother about who's going to be a live president or not.
Sure. So, to go back to the IOC now, as you're saying, Mr. Kalmadi has stepped back. We're not certain about Mr. Chautala right now. We're hearing flip-flops as far as his decision goes. But do you think that the IOC will only step in case Mr. Chautala agrees to brazen it out, as you're pointing out? Or will they raise questions about the very fact that 2 individuals like Kalmadi and Chautala were considered even for the post of live presidents?
Well, I'm not sure the IOC will intervene until there is a serious objection raised by the Government of India. Now, while the Government of India technically can't interfere, with the workings of the IOA, the government of India was part of the process along with the IOC and the IOA to get India back into the Olympic fold. Now the sports ministers made certain very strong statements about not having anything to do with the IOA till these two positions are withdrawn. I'm not sure what the IOC is going to do. The IOC is very simple in this. They have an ethics commission which looks at all these cases of potential conflicts of interest and if someone is tainted or not. We have an ethics commission in India as well. The unfortunate reality is not too many people in the IOA consult that ethics commission. If that ethics commission was consulted, many other people who are there in the IOA would cease to be members.
What do you think needs to be done? From what I'm gathering from our conversation is that the IOA is sort of like a toothless tiger. The body doesn't have much power, but it has to function on account of commitments to the IOC. What really needs to be done on the ground when it comes to the administration of sport, keeping India's dismal performance at 2016 Rio goes?
You know, the IOA can do a lot of good things. You know, across the world, you have the New Zealand Olympic Committee runs a high performance center. The US Olympic Committee is one of the most important and powerful committees in terms of finances. So there's a lot which can be done. Unfortunately, the IOA doesn't do anything. And that is where I think India's athletes feel let down. And Abhinav Bindra and others have always come forward and said it, that listen, you are here for us. Back us, give us the best of facilities, fight for us. That sadly does not happen. I am not saying that there are not committed people in Indian sport. We've seen how Mr. Batra has single-handedly turned around Indian hockey from not qualifying to the Olympics in 2008 to how well they've done recently. There are other federations which are doing well. But sadly, the IOA is a mix of sycophants. Sadly, what's happened is Mr. Kalmadi over the years and then Mr. Chautala, they've filled the IOA with their own people. So those very people, when they're in that meeting, don't have the power to question a decision like one which was made yesterday.
Okay, and you know, Diggy, this comes at a time when Indian sports already been in the news with the BCCI and the Supreme Court tussle and the Lodha committee, of course. And now this follows shortly after. Do you feel that, you know, it's time for how do I put it, for there to be a division of power in terms of political power and sports when it comes to India? We've been hearing this over and over again, but when it really comes down to the meat of the matter, it seems like nothing is taken forward when it needs to be.
As you said a short while back, it's a cozy club. You look at who's in the IOA or even in the BCCI, they're all top political personalities of this country. I'll remember an incident when Mr. Kalmadi was sent to jail in 2011.
Right.
Even then, the IOA did not remove him. Professor Vijay Kumar Malhotra, who is a very senior member of the BJP, even now he's a life president of the IOA, he took charge, but the IOA could not get together to get rid of Mr. Kalmadi, who was in jail. So those are the deals which happen in Indian sports, sadly. And while you may say that the influence of politicians is there, where are the athletes coming forward to stake their claim? That's also the problem. Many athletes hesitate to come forward knowing they can't get into this dirty world.
Okay, we have time for one quick question, Diggy. You said life presidents are, these nominal sort of posts that the IOA has. Are these specific only to the Indian Olympic Association, or do other countries also have posts such as these?
I think International Olympic Committee also has the honorary life president, where Jacques Rogge, once he gave up the IOC presidency and he was replaced by Thomas Bach. One of the first decisions Thomas Bach made was to make Jacques Rogge the honorary IOC president. That happens in Indian sport, in other federations as well. In fact, the current IOA treasurer, Mr. Anil Khanna, who is used to be the head of the tennis federation, he was asked to step down by the government. Well, he had a simple escape clause. He became life president, just like Yashwant Sinha and SM Krishna ahead of him. So I think that's one way these federations have found to beat the government's policies when it comes to controlling them.
Could you wager a guess on how many life presidents the IOA has?
As of now, they have Mr. Malhotra for sure. We don't know the status of Mr. Chautala, and Mr. Kalmadi has decided not to take up the position.
Okay, Digvijay Singh Deo, thanks so much for joining us in the studio and breaking this entire controversy down for us on WION. We are going to take a quick break on that note, but we'll be back with some of the day's top stories on the other side. Don't go anywhere.